on with me. I got money in the bank. What you think about that? I'm not going to quote any more of the song. Sorry, that was awful singing. I apologize. I do not have the vocal gifts of the one and only T-Pain. But we got money in the bank on this episode of Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. Hello once again. I'm Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund, joined by my assistant to the host, J.O. We're back a little bit later again this week, but work complications once again. It's not this. It was the holiday last week. Work complications this week, but we're here. We're ready to talk about our top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. Top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. And J.O., I'm excited for this episode. How excited are you for this?
It was a lot of fun coming up with this list. A little difficult, also, to be honest, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be...
You probably agree with...
Oh, my gosh. Oh, Lord. Here we go. But, all right, J.O., the floor is yours. Sorry.
Okay. You probably agree with this... you probably agree with me on this one, Sigdaddy, but cash-ins are super cool. I love them. I love the surprise factor of them, trying to guess when, where it's going to happen, and seeing them happen. It's just a lot of fun. One of my favorite things that WWE has brought to wrestling.
And I know y'all listening at home can't see this, but I am currently wearing the inventor of this match, the supposed inventor of this match's T-shirt, Chris Jericho, because he's the one that apparently came up with it, in air quotes, in 2005. He was the creator of the Money in the Bank ladder match. It was his brainchild. We'll be talking about that here in just a few minutes, I'll say. We'll say a few minutes. But we'll get into that here soon. J.O., I know you had a topic you wanted to speak to me about and get my take on and kind of want to discuss. So what is that topic?
Yes, absolutely. So there's some buzz going on wrestling social media. At first, it was announced that WWE would be going back from PG rating to TV-14 on July 18th. However, it looks like BR Wrestling jumped the gun in reporting that, and they had to backtrack. And this is from Andrew Zarian from Wrestling Observer, that it's not official that WWE is going to switch to TV-14, but it's still heavily considered.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so they just switched from saying, yes, they're doing it, to actually, no, they're just still thinking about it. So
you get me excited for 2 seconds. It's like, oh, maybe it's like they're like, oh, maybe we'll bring back the other people, the older fans back, the older fans back in. Nope. Yeah, well, the younger fans or whatever. Nope. Like, oh, the kids out over the age of 14. Nope. Because the show's catered mostly towards kids.
Yeah.
I was actually happy to see that for a second. I'm like, all right, Cody Rhodes sent a little winking like a smirking emoji because he thought it was kind of, I don't know what he might have had an influence in that situation or something, but I really hope they do go back to TV-14.
I do too. I really, really would like that, because you've kept track of the numbers more than I have, but for WWE, the viewership, it's just been steadily declining, has it not?
It has, but it doesn't matter to them because they're still one of the highest rated shows they're the highest rated show on USA, I'm pretty sure. Raw is. And apparently, like, Raw has been way better than SmackDown recently from what I've seen, like, review-wise. It's Raw and SmackDown. Raw has been the better show, which was weird. Just a year ago, it was completely flip-flopped. SmackDown was the good show. Raw was the bad show. Now it's complete. There was an episode of SmackDown, I think it was this past week, that had less than 15 minutes of wrestling on it.
What did they do for the entire show?
Apparently a bunch of promo segments. Drew McIntyre versus Butch, also known as Pete Dunne. It went 1.5 minutes. And that was the main event.
1.5 minutes.
The longest match on the show went less than 7 minutes, according to Cage Match.
My goodness, that sounds like horrible TV.
Yeah, I looked at the rating on cagematch.net. It was less than 2. They also had Ronda in a squash match against Natalia, who she just beat at Money in the Bank before she lost the the women's SmackDown Women's Championship, by the way. So, my God. But yeah, they need some new life in there. And apparently, well, I was reading it's NXT is a lot more free using of the language and the sex appeal and all that stuff. They like to accentuate certain assets on certain people. It's true though. It's true. You look at some of the, like, you'll see stuff on social media and you'll be like Nikita Lyons. She's a very attractive woman.
Right. And that's a good point.
They like to exploit that kind of stuff.
And that's a good point to what I was also going to say too. While I don't want them to be objectifying their wrestlers like they used to in the past. Absolutely not. I just want it to be a more mature and maybe a more brutal, visceral kind of product than what we've been getting these past few years. Because when was the change? 2008? Right?
About 2008, 2009, around that time frame. That was when I was watching.
Right. Me too. And the last official match of the TV14 era was the Shawn Michaels Chris Jericho match, was it not?
I think so. Yeah, it was a Great American Bash 2008, if I remember correct. That was bloody. Yeah. That was bloody too, because Jericho like busted his eye really bad.
Yeah.
That was a great rivalry, by the way.
Oh, amazing rivalry. Great rivalry. But yeah, point being, last time they were TV14 was 2008. I was still in middle school. I'm still in middle school. I'm a 26-year-old man now. So it's been a while since WWE's had that kind of product. So it'd be real fresh, real interesting to see them have it again.
It'd be a breath of fresh air. And I like the objectifying women thing. I don't really like that at all. They don't need to go back. They don't need to go back to that.
No.
Period. But they do it on NXT a little bit because of the way they have some of the women dress.
And heck, if the women want to do that, more power to them. I support it.
Because you remember Athena came out with that thing where they wanted all in booty shorts practically.
Yeah. But if the women are comfortable doing it that way, absolutely,
no, that's fine. That's fine as long as they're comfortable with it. It doesn't need. It's just it can't be forced by management. That's my point. It can't be forced by management.
Exactly. Agree 100%.
And I love seeing quality women's matches. I've loved that. And who changed the game on that was Sasha and Bayley. That NXT TakeOver match from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. We're almost on the 7-year anniversary of that, by the way. So that's good. Yeah, TV14 would definitely help WWE, though. I think it would help. Maybe bring some blood, bring some color back in, some blood. I need blood in my wrestling. A little bit.
Absolutely.
You can't have a cage match or an elimination chamber match without a little bit of blood.
Oh, if there's no blood in a cage match or an elimination chamber or a ladder match, might as well not even have those kind of matches.
The ladder match, I maybe, but the cage and the Hell in a Cell and what did I say? Cage, Hell in a Cell, elimination chamber. Those 3 matches need blood.
Right.
They need color, as they like to call it, but.
So we need color from the wrestlers. We don't need color from the cage.
Yes, we don't need red cage. That was one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen in my life, by the way. All right, let's get down to business here. Top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. So J&O and I are going to run down our top 5. We're going to have some honorable mentions first, and we're going to go from 5 to 1. We're going to have some kind of crossover here, but we're going to give each of our explanations why we kind of put this in a spot. Why is it fun to us and that kind of thing. But we're going to have crossover. No worries. We'll talk about we'll talk about each cash in like why we have it on our list. Hopefully that was clear to everybody at home. But here we go. Jo, do you have any honorable mentions for this?
Yeah, I only had two. One was Dolph Ziggler's cash in on Alberto Del Rio. I like because I may have mentioned it before. Actually, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, but I feel as if that Dolph Ziggler criminally underutilized throughout his WWE career. He's had some pretty solid pushes. Don't get me wrong, but he could have done a lot more with the time he's been in the company.
He just turned babyface this week.
Yeah, I would say he's back. So hopefully, there's another round for him. And second honorable mention was Dean Ambrose on Seth Rollins.
Ooh, see, you're almost teasing some people with some of mine. So
yeah,
possibly. But my honorable mentions are Liv Morgan on Ronda. Recently, it's a little bit of recency bias, but if you look at the women's cash-ins, for the most part, they were almost all on the same night, except minus Carmella's. Asuka's was not really a cash-in because she won the belt. She won the belt in the briefcase because Becky Lynch was pregnant. That was back in 2020. It was one of the fight through WWE headquarters to the top, and Asuka won the Money in the Bank briefcase, which turned out to be the Raw Women's Championship. But overall, the women's cash-ins haven't been good, in my opinion. They haven't figured out how to have someone hold the briefcase for more than a few weeks or a couple of months, maybe. But the second honorable mention here, CM Punk on Jeff Hardy in 2009.
Oh, interesting.
Extreme Rules. Jeff Hardy won the ladder match, winning the World Heavyweight Championship from the Rated R superstar Edge. And he was exhausted after the ladder match. And then Punk came in, hit 2 GTSs to put him away. And that was that turned CM Punk. CM Punk who was a babyface at that point, turned him heel. Which was I thought that was cool. It led to that rivalry that lasted the entire summer, which ultimately led to Jeff departing the company on his own. That was by his own accord. But then he got arrested immediately afterward. We're not going to get into the details of that. So, but yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Liv Morgan on Ronda here this year, and CM Punk on Jeff Hardy back in 2009, 13 years ago. God, we're old, man. We're old.
If I remember that feud, that was an intense feud because they played the whole straight edge CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy, who indulges in some stuff.
He's was that what they call it? I don't know. Free spirit. That's what they said.
Free spirit. Okay. And anytime a feud involves a wrestler's personal life like that, I always feel it adds a little more weight to it. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely an intense feud.
Okay. So, all right. Here we go. We got the honorable mentions out of the way. Top 5. Jo, your number 5 cash in of all time.
Number 5. So you basically talked about teasing. My number 5 spot was Liv Morgan cashes in on Rousey. Money in the Bank. Yes, it's probably recency bias, and I know I talked into it a great deal in the last episode, but my God, man, that call from McAfee and Cole was just chef's kiss. I could go on and on about how much I love that call. I watched it a few times today while I was double checking my list. It's just so good. They're just talking. Liv's music hits. Michael Cole stops talking just to try to take in what's going on. They immediately stand up, shouting like, "Oh my God, it's Liv Morgan! It's Liv Morgan!" I love it. Such an awesome call, and it's in my top 5 just because of that. It's also low on my list because it happened a week ago, a little more than a week ago.
A couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, we have yet to see how she does with the title. So hopefully it's a decent reign. But number 5 for me, Liv Morgan cashes in on Ronda Rousey.
So you hinted at this. I switched my list around a little bit just briefly, just like a second ago. So my number 5 is Dolph Ziggler cashing in on Alberto Del Rio at the Raw after WrestleMania in 2013. So Del Rio the night before defended the title against Jack Swagger at WrestleMania 29. And then the next night, he had a 2-on-1 handicap match against Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter. And then Ziggler came out. The pop for it was absolutely enormous when Ziggler came out. And Ziggler was a heel at this point. You have to take that into consideration. Ziggler was a heel here. Del Rio was the baby face. And Ziggler comes in. He faces a little bit of he had to face some adversity in this match. And then Ziggler hits the zigzag, wins the world title, and the place just freaking explodes. Just explodes. Yeah, Ziggler, like you said already before, Jo, he is one of the he's so underrated. He's underrated. He does underrated, underutilized. The guy delivers when you need him to deliver. He just never gets the love he actually gets, and it may have to do with size. I don't know exactly what it is.
No idea. But
and injuries hindered his reign too. I think he had concussion issues too.
Yeah, that's true. That's unfortunate part of it.
And he held the briefcase since like June or July of the year previous. So he had the briefcase for 8 or 9 months.
Was this a face turn for him because of the crowd reaction? Because if a crowd reaction like that, you can't keep a guy heel.
I think it may have. I can't remember the timeline. It may have been. I think it may have been. I'd have to look more into it, but that crowd reaction was unbelievable for that too. Because Ziggler at that point, he'd been with the company actually like 7 years at least, because he worked in the Spirit. He was in the Spirit Squad. But like he had worked main roster stuff since like late 2008, early 2009. So he'd been up there in the 4 or 5 years. And he was good. He always was good.
Solid workhorse.
Good Intercontinental Champion, great heel, did stuff with Vicky Guerrero. Just good. He was just good. So he had a really good social media game back then too, I think, as well.
He did.
He was pretty good. Him and Ryder were really good at that. Like those utilizing social media at that point, those two were pretty dang good at it. But yeah, that's not my number 5. Jo, moving on, your number 4.
Number 4, Money in the Bank 2019, women's. Bayley cashes in on Charlotte.
See, I thought about that one too a little bit. I did think about that one, but go on.
Sigdaddy, if you can recall back in our college days, Monday nights we'd be watching Raw. You remember how much I love Bayley, right?
Yeah, we all love Bayley at that point. Fans sometimes didn't, which I never understood, but that was because WWE's booking, by the way. Just not her fault. It was the booking, but continue.
Right. Yeah. Loved Bayley around this time. Still do. Wishing her a speedy recovery. Hope she's doing well.
She's been out for over a year now.
Oh my God, yes. And when she comes back, I hope she comes back as a face again, because as corny as it was, I loved her entrance music as a face. Like, you can't help but smile when that song came on.
Mm-hmm. It was good. But she kind of grew. I think she kind of grew out of that a little bit, though. We'll see. Her heel work was really good, though.
It was. Her heel work was really good. Got the Karen hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to the match. But yeah, I loved Bayley at this. I think the setup for it was good. Charlotte beating the crap out of Becky. And then Bayley comes in for the rescue.
Was it Carmella, I think?
Was it Carmella?
I think it was Carmella. Let me just, I want to verify real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Continue, Jo. I'll let you continue talking as I look this up.
But the way they played it was Bayley didn't even intend to cash in. She just came to help, but she saw the opportunity, decided to cash in, and One thing I think we're going to talk about a lot on this episode is crowd reactions, and
That's
with
it. It's
Bailey's,
very important.
yes, and with Bailey's, another great crowd reaction, huge pop. Crowd loved it. I loved it. And in terms of in the number of same night cash in by the women's, I'll hold this one by Bailey very high up, close to Liv Morgan's.
Understandably. I think it was it yeah, it was on, was it 2018 or 2019?
19.
19. Okay, I'm looking at the wrong year. That's why. All right, let's make sure we have the information correct, because I don't want to be wrong on here. I don't want to be wrong on Sigdaddy's wrestling show. We want to make sure we have the facts straight here. We don't have any mess ups.
No fake news.
No fake news. Okay, here we go. 7. All right, here we go. Yes, so Charlotte just won the title from Becky Lynch.
Okay, Becky Lynch.
Okay, yes. Charlotte won the title from Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch just had a defense against Lacey Evans for the Raw Women's Championship, and they did the match immediately after that. I forgot that this Money in the Bank was in May, not June like it typically is, or July or whatever. They switched the dates around so much anymore of these pay-per-views, but yeah, she just defended it, and yeah, that was a really good moment though. That was, that's a good one. That's probably, honestly, outside of Liv, and those two are probably the best ones, women's wise. I think. So yeah, that's a good one at number 4. That was a surprise. That was a surprise.
I told you I'd have a few surprises on here.
And another one you alluded to earlier was Dean Ambrose on Seth Rollins after he won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship from Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank 2016. If you know the history of these 3 gentlemen, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose,
they used to have a stable, didn't they?
Yeah, it was called the Field.
The Field, I think it was the Field, right?
Field. So I think a guy walks around with one. Oh, Shield. Yeah, the Shield.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was the Shield.
The Shield. Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Like, overall, you think about that moment. So Reigns has been holding the WWE World Heavyweight Championship since WrestleMania of that year. He won from Triple H in a not very well received match moment. The crowd didn't really give a crap. But here, so a couple months, he had a couple of defenses against Styles, and then it led to this. Seth Rollins returns after one of the defenses against Styles. Huge reaction. They keep Seth Rollins heel for some reason. Oh, well. Seth Rollins wins the WWE World Heavyweight Championship from Reigns that night. Dean Ambrose, who won Money in the Bank that night, comes up from behind after Rollins is celebrating, hits him with the briefcase. People are losing their crap. Ambrose hits the dirty deeds. 1, 2, 3. Ambrose wins the WWE World Heavyweight Championship to an enormous reaction. And why I put this where I put this is because the importance of the moment. You got to think about this. All 3 Shield members held the WWE title in the same night.
That's pretty cool. I love that. I love that little tidbit every time I think about that.
It was just cool storytelling, actually, in that situation, because it was kind of, wow. All 3 guys from the Shield held the title at one point during this night. And it was Ambrose who was the one that finally was able to win it, because he was the last one to win a world championship out of everyone on the Shield, in the Shield.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was kind of, what'd you say?
I was going to say, which is kind of funny to think about, because he was like the de facto leader of the Shield when they were together, weren't they?
I think it was Rollins. He was the architect of the Shield.
Was it Rollins?
Yeah. But
okay.
But still, Ambrose is the last one to win it. And you know where it would lead for him moving forward. A couple of years, 3 years later, less than 3 years later, he's out of the company. And he's now he is the current interim AEW World Heavyweight Champion. But yep, that is my number 4, Dean Ambrose cashing in on Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank at 2016, and that was the first time they actually did the cash in the same night.
That was the first time.
Yeah, that was the first time they did the cash in the same night. Because I know Alberto Del Rio attempted it in 2011 on Punk, but that didn't happen until Punk thwarted that immediately before the bell was even rung. But this one was the first time it was a cash in the same night, I'm pretty sure, and Ambrose won the title. But Jo, time for your number 3.
My number 3 is RVD cashes in against John Cena. So a little different kind of cash in.
Jo, here we go. Here's the crossover. We have the same one at number 3.
Same one at number 3. Beautiful. I love it. So yeah, a different kind of cash in. So, and I think it's the idea of that kind of a cash in where it's not a surprise and he makes it a fair fight. I think that made RVD look like such a badass.
But you got to think about this. You got to think about the circumstances in this situation, though. ECW,
okay.
One Night Stand, 2006. Hammerstein Ballroom. RVD has home field advantage.
Okay, maybe not such a fair fight, but it wasn't a surprise attack. I guess I should say it that way. So even though there wasn't necessarily a surprise, oh my God, the cashing in kind of moment, it's it's the moment that this cash-in led to. One of the most hostile, energetic crowds I've ever seen in my life.
This crowd, just to give everyone an explanation at home. So Cena's a babyface. Cena's a white meat babyface at this point. Literally,
face of the WWE.
He's the face of the company. He tries to throw his shirt in the crowd in New York City, the Hammerstein Ballroom, the Manhattan Center, whatever you want to call it. He tries to throw his shirt in the crowd. They throw it back to him. They continue to throw it back to him. They will not let him throw his shirt into the crowd. They are not keeping it because he is not ECW.
Oh, that's the furthest thing from ECW that at the time that you could think of, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh. It was just brilliant. I love see, a lot of these cash-ins have some sort of creativity factor with them. Each of these 5, like the top 5 I have most of them, almost all of them have some sort of creativity factor that comes into play with them. This one is one that I really liked because it was you've got home field advantage. You don't even need to do it in a surprise here.
Oh, definitely not. The way, just the moment itself, the match itself, I guess I should say, was just perfect.
And the way it happened too, Edge comes out in a dang biker helmet, spears Cena through a table as Cena's getting ready to win it, but the referee, I think there's multiple referees that were taken out at this point. But then Edge hits the spear on him. Cena, RVD's like, Taz is on commentary, like, capitalize. They're like, Taz and Joey Styles are like, capitalize. We'll take it. We'll take it. And so he hits the frog splash. RVD's looking for a ref after Edge spears him through the table. And then RVD hits the frog splash. He's looking for a ref. And then Paul Heyman comes down and he makes the 3 count.
See, I know a lot of people were a little upset about that. Maybe not even at the time, but I guess in a historical sense, people are starting to think maybe that's not the best way that match could have gone. But I thought it was a good.
Am I wrong? That's an that's ECW show.
Yeah.
They do what they want on that show. It's an ECW, it's a WWE produced, but it's an ECW show. So the ECW people are going to do what their ECW people are going to do. Paul Heyman was the leader of ECW. So he has the choice to come down to the ring and make the 3 count if he wants.
He does, and he did.
And he's the leader of the new ECW at that point, 2006. He didn't stay there for very long because we all know how that turned out, the ECW, but he ended up winning the WWE World Heavyweight, the WWE Championship, and then he was awarded because ECW was introduced a couple nights later on Sci-Fi. He was given the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. So he was the only guy to ever hold those both simultaneously.
Wow.
But
Actually, don't think I knew that part of it.
Yeah, he was awarded the ECW title after that. But this cash in was just brilliant. I love the creativity factor that came into this because it was something different than the first one. But we'll probably get into that one a little bit later, I assume. But Jo, you're number 2.
My number 2, Sigdaddy, I got 4 words for you. Heist of the century. Seth Rollins cashing in at WrestleMania 31.
Oh, man.
It's got the first cash in at Mania in Mania history. And the thing I like about this is, again, it's a little different from the regular surprise attack cash in. There was already a match going on, a decent match, I should say, at that, in my opinion.
Pretty good. It was a pretty good match, actually. It was Roman and Brock's only good match.
And then out of nowhere, Seth Rollins' music kicks in. He comes sprinting out of the stage. Beautiful camera work by WWE, I should say, too. Just that angle of him running by. And then slides in, cashes in, and he has a little bit of a mini match, too. He participates in the match for a little bit, and then kicks Brock out of the way. Curb stomp to Roman Reigns. 1, 2, 3. Champion. I loved it.
Oh, man, it's such a good moment. We'll get it, just hinting everybody. I have this on my list. It's just maybe in a different spot. But yes, that was one of the best. That's definitely one of the best cash in. I think best cash ins of all time. Even if it's not like I'm just saying not just from us. Overall, it has to be up top 2, 3, number ones in some places. Because it's just the way that it was done mid-match. Because at that point in time, Money in the Bank had been around for 10 years. Nobody had cashed in the middle of a match.
And not even just the middle of a match. The middle of a match at WrestleMania?
The WrestleMania main event.
Main event at WrestleMania? Where do you get the nerve, Seth Rollins? My goodness.
Oh, man.
Even though the people are saying it was really Vince's call near the end, but you know what I mean. Like, just the amazing booking, in my opinion. Just so
it's brilliant.
So exciting. Brilliant.
All right. So my number 2 here, Jo. I think this is where we may flip-flop. I'm predicting here. Edge at New Year's Revolution 2006. Am I correct?
Sigdaddy, this may surprise you, but you are incorrect.
Wow, I'm wrong. God, wow.
And none of Edge's cash-ins are on my list.
Wow, that's a surprise. So, and I know how much you love Edge too.
Oh yeah.
But I have Edge's cash-in from 2006 at New Year's Revolution. So, reason being, I put this. The first one's it usually sets the standard for the rest of them. I think this was so well done because Edge was this was him. He was starting to hit his, I wouldn't say peak, but he was really ascending at this point because he won the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2005. Been doing great work as a heel throughout that year in the lead up to this. Cena, so the circumstances regarding this, so Cena had an Elimination Chamber match that night. Bloody Elimination Chamber involving, so he defended his WWE Championship. He won, so he held the WWE Championship almost 10 months at that point. He was defending against Kane, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, Carlito, and Chris Masters. He won with 2 roll-ups on Carlito and Masters. And then the chamber raises up, and Vince comes out and announces that Edge is cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase. He doesn't take 1 spear, he takes 2 spears. Got a really good reaction, by the way, even though Edge was full-on heel at this point.
Oh, yeah.
He won the WWE Championship. A great moment. and which ultimately launched Edge's career. Like finally, it took him a while to get to that main event level, and he finally had reached that point, which was a great culmination of that. Great, it was a great moment for him because it finally told everyone that's like this guy is a main eventer now. Though he only held the WWE Championship for less than a month, he held it for about 3 weeks at that point. It ended up leading up to more world championships. I think over 10 now. He's at least a 10-time world champion. So anyway, I thought that was a very appropriate one at number 2 because it's one of the originals, and I thought it deserved this spot because it set the standard for all cash-ins moving forward.
So some people say Edge is, king of the Money in the Bank.
Even though he didn't win it the second time, he kind of won it from Mr. Kennedy and then used it. But
yeah.
All right, you're number 1 now, Jo. It's the big one. Number 1.
Number 1. My number 1 Money in the Bank cash in wasn't at a major pay-per-view. It wasn't at WrestleMania. It was on Monday Night Raw, June 30th, 2008. CM Punk cashes in on Edge. And the reason this is my number 1, it was the first cash in I was able to see live.
Huh. I remember watching this one.
2008, right smack dab in the middle of when I was 100% into wrestling. Would watch every Monday night, would watch every Friday night. Couldn't watch pay-per-views yet because I was still living with my parents and they wouldn't let me buy pay-per-views.
Of course.
So I could only, yeah. And I remember it vividly. Monday night, came home from school, just watching wrestling. Edge cuts a promo. And Jim Ross was actually cutting a promo before Edge was cutting his. And I guess that pissed Edge off. So he tells Hawkins and Ryder to escort Jim Ross away. But that leaves Edge unguarded. And then who comes out but Batista? And he attacks Edge.
Because he lost the pay-per-view the previous night. He was not able to win the World Heavyweight Championship back the previous night.
No, he did not. But he attacks Edge all around the ring. Batista bomb right in the middle. Batista goes to walk out. And then boom, CM Punk's music hits. He comes running out with the ref. Slides in, gives the briefcase. 1 go to sleep. 1, 2, 3. And then CM Punk wins the World Heavyweight Championship. And CM Punk was basically a mid-carder at this point.
Yeah, he was. He was not a main eventer at this point.
No. And then out of nowhere, he cashes in and, look, he's the World Heavyweight Champion. I will always remember this cash-in because it was the first one and maybe the only one. Yeah. So far, because most of these I couldn't have watched because, again, living with my parents didn't let me buy pay-per-views. Unfortunately, I did miss the Liv Morgan one. I just really wasn't interested in watching Money in the Bank.
I wasn't either, so we can't.
This year, so kind of sucks about that one. But this one was just on a Monday Night Raw. I was able to watch it, and I'll always remember that.
I remember it too, man. I wanted to put this one on there, but I just thought the creativity of the other one. I had an honorable mention with Punk, the one I had with Punk and Hardy. I thought that was the better of the 2 cash-ins, but man, well, that one, if you have a fond memory of it, it really sticks with you, honestly. And it sticks with me as well. I remember watching that one too. But yeah, that definitely sticks with you if it really, like, you remember, like, sitting where you're at when it happened.
So remember it vividly. And it might be a hot take, but I like CM Punk's first entrance music over his second one.
I like both. But that's a discussion for another day, probably. So my number 1 here. My number 1 is your number 2, Jo. So my number 1 is the Seth Rollins at Mania 31 cash-in. Back in 2015, just the heist of the century, as Cole liked to call it. That was actually a good call by Cole.
Great call.
It was really good call by Cole. And it was an accurate point. It was a very accurate point. It was the heist of the century. He literally just stole the match and won the title. Stole the title practically because he entered mid-match after Roman and Brock had beat the living daylights out of each other for probably 20 minutes at that point. And so he cashed in middle of the match, won the WWE Championship, and I thought that was the most well done cash in, I think, of all time. Because they did it in the middle of the match in the WrestleMania main event, nonetheless.
Out of all matches.
What?
I said, out of all matches, you picked to do it on that one.
Yeah, you picked it. You picked to do it there in the biggest stage of them all, in the middle of the match against two brutes in there, and Brock and Roman. And there was the Weasel. The Weasel pretty much snuck in and got the title. Freaking brilliant. Just brilliant.
And you probably heard just a small quick fun fact about that. You've probably heard the rumors or have seen the replays of the videos. You can actually hear Seth thanking Roman when he's pinning him. Have you seen that?
That's cool, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You'll see wrestlers from time to time check on one another after like a certain big spot. Like you saw Becky and Asuka after they had this like not hardcore match, but it was like a no DQ match, and they kind of squeezed each other to tell, letting them know they're okay. But yeah, thanking people. Stone Cold, The Rock did that to Stone Cold after he won at WrestleMania 19, and that thing too. It's cool to see that see those little nuances, I'll say.
Yeah.
But let's just go over our top 5 one more time, just to give everyone at home just the layout of our list. So Jo.
Just to recap, number 5, I had Liv Morgan cashing in on Ronda, Bayley cashing in on Charlotte, RVD cashing in versus John Cena. Number 2, Seth Rollins with the heist of the century cashing in at WrestleMania 31. And number 1, CM Punk cashing in on Edge, Monday Night Raw, June 30th, 2008.
All righty. So my 5 were Ziggler at the Raw after WrestleMania 29 in 2013. That's number 5. Number 4, Dean Ambrose cashing in on Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank 2016. RVD cashing in on John Cena at ECW One Night Stand 2006. Number 2, Edge cashing in on John Cena at New Year's Revolution 2006. And number 1, Seth Rollins cashing in the middle of the Roman Brock main event at WrestleMania 31 back in 2015. I don't know about you, Jo, man, but this was a lot of fun to go over because like you told me you were going to shock me with some of your picks, and you did. You certainly shocked me there.
Hey, I mean, I knew I'd have some controversial picks. Having a top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins with Liv Morgan in the top 5 and not having Edge in a single one could be seen as pretty controversial. I could see that, but it's my top 5 and I can do what I want with it.
Hey, you do what the hell you want. That's your list. You stand up for your list, or
Right.
You'll get put on the list of Jericho. Oh, stupid Money in the Bank cash-in rankings. You just made the list.
Oh God, take me back to 2016.
Gosh, that was we need okay, Jo, you and I at some point here on the show, we need to just go over 2016 because honestly, that was the last great year in WWE, I think.
I think I would agree with you there.
Because that year I just remember fondly. Like there was so much good stuff about that year. Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, and Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho's relationship. First off, that was
such a
highlight of Raw every week.
Again, this was around the year we would watch it just in college. Yeah, good old Central Hall. Always
just fond memories, man.
Always the highlight of Monday Night Raw was seeing the segments that they were a part of.
Yeah, I think also there during this time too that was the Dean Ambrose thing happened too. Think about that. Dean Ambrose cashing in, AJ Styles finally winning the WWE Championship by the end of that year. Him and Cena having just bangers, straight bangers that year.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, that was 2016 was such a good year. We'll have to definitely just kind of look at a retrospective or do something on the year 2016 in WWE because we're both in agreement here that it's probably the last great year WWE has had. But nonetheless, hope you all enjoyed this episode of Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show, going over our top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. What are your top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time? Let us know. You can let me know on Twitter, Facebook, and on TikTok at Sigdaddy Wrestle, and on Instagram at sigdaddy.wrestle. Where can they tell you that stuff, J.O.?
You guys could tell me your opinions on Twitter and Instagram at Jeremy Rodas, all lowercase.
And make sure to tell us your opinions on your top 5 Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. J.O.'s going to take a little bit of a hiatus. He's going to take 1 week off of the show. He'll be back in another week. But next week on the show, I will have a friend of mine. His name's Jimmy, but he goes by JBK. He'll be joining me on the show, Sigdaddy. Talking about myself in third person is weird, but yes, Sigdaddy. JBK will be joining me. We're going to be discussing a little bit about the one of the hottest times in professional wrestling, the Attitude Era. Not sure on the exact topic yet, but it should be a fun discussion nonetheless with JBK. Haven't talked to him like face to face or via video in quite a while, just over text. So it's going to be a lot of fun talking some Attitude Era wrestling with Jimmy, also known as JBK, here next week on Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. If you want to listen to other episodes of the show or want to subscribe, and actually you should subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast, you should subscribe to Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. And if you like the show a lot, make sure to give it a 5-star review. Leave us a review. We appreciate any feedback we have on the show. And if you have any suggestions, honestly, for topics for Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show, you can hit me up on Twitter at Sigdaddy Wrestle for those as well, because we're open to suggestions. You can send us suggestions. We love having topics to talk about here on Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. So as we wrap things up, I'm Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund alongside J.O. We're signing off, saying so long, everybody.